The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Then they came to Capernaum, and on the Sabbath Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. The people were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. In their synagogue was a man with an unclean spirit. He cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus rebuked him and said, "Quiet, come out of him." The unclean spirit convulsed him, and with a loud cry came out of him. All were amazed and asked one another, "What is this?" A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. His fame spread everywhere throughout the whole region of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Lord
Jesus Christ.
That Geico commercial, there's a million of them, but the one where it's a recent one, where the announcer says, "We've done studies that show that people remember our commercials more effectively when they have a commercial with nostalgia," and then they show the kid getting a Geico insurance box for Christmas. So I just think that's hilarious. Well, studies have shown that whenever I use TRIP in my homilies, more people pay attention. So I am pimping my dog today. Next weekend is the Bishop's Appeal. So I am going to do my best in 5 or 6 steps to connect my dog with why you should give to the Bishop's Appeal. And Bishop, if you were watching, please forgive me, but I think it's going to work. Just wait for the numbers to come in. So I got Trip, had his gotcha day. His anniversary was this week. So I've had him 6 years for this week. And it was one of those things that I had to get used to, living a different type of lifestyle. You know, when you have a baby or you have a dog, which sometimes it can be kind of the same thing, no offense to the babies, but you got to get used to doing things in a different way. So I had him for a week, and all of a sudden I realized I'd gotten him, and then a week later, it was this time next week when the priests go to Gatlinburg for our annual study days. And I realized, what am I going to do with this dog? I can't just put a dog in the house and leave him there for 3 days. Lord knows, I got a 3-legged pit bull. I didn't know what I would end up with in the house. So what we decided to do was we keep him in the downstairs area of the parish at St. Thomas, was where the youth area was. So he had had his bed, we had everything he needed, and then the folks in the office would just let him up during the day for that day and a half that we were gone. So that worked okay, and it was fine. But I was kind of trying to find a better solution to this, right? And so then found out that my vet also boarded dogs, which was great. So it was very close, very convenient. I knew them from St. John Newman, and so I knew the trip would be well taken care of, and that was fine. It was good, but you put the dog in the kennel, and it's just a cage and some cement, and so it's not the same as him being home. Well, this goes on for about 2 years. And then over time, everybody in the office has fallen in love with the dog. And so he was well regarded. And so Christine Lucian, Deacon David's wife, worked with me down there at St. Thomas. And she's like, "I think I'm going to ask DD if Trip can stay with us." Because he was not a fan of dogs before that. You can't tell now, because now he's the only person other than me, Trip was the only person other than me that will let somebody walk him, and that's Deacon David. So he was. So she's like, let me work on him a little bit, and that way we won't have to put him into jail, right? Because that's what we called it taking him to the vet, taking him to the hoosgow. You've heard that word before, hoosgow. So what a weird word. It's a real word, and so I looked it up, and so I'm going to tell you where the word hoosgow came from. So the word hoosgow is a Spanish word. Who knew? It was a Spanish word. It comes from the word juzgado, which means judge. And the judge usually was located in the same building where the jail was. So that word juzgado came to be synonymous with jail. And then in Mexican Spanish, it transformed over time to the word juzgao. 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 So that's where the word juzgao came from. Now you know something that you really will never ever have to use again. But the reason I bring up this word juzgao is because there's a new word that I'm going to introduce to you today. And that word is juzgana. Juzgana. Who's going to give to the bishop's appeal next week? We all are, right? And so I'm going to tell you who's going to give. We all are. You sitting here, you watching at home. Now I'm going to tell you who's going to benefit from our participation in the bishop's appeal. The bishop's appeal is solely for a group of organizations and ministries in the diocese that help other people. But by helping other people, it helps all of us, all of the diocese of Knoxville here in East Tennessee. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't pay to keep our lights on here or to keep things going or for the physical plant of the parish. Doesn't pay the air conditioning bill in the chancery or the diocese. It solely is meant to help those around us. As you well know, over the past year, so much has changed. There was a guy, when I first started bartending back in the day, he said, listen, as long as you know how to bartend, you'll never go hungry. Know any bartenders who are missing meals or who are suffering, or waitresses or waiters who have lost their jobs? Thousands have lost their jobs. So many people this year have become food insecure. Where people who had a good job were able to pay for food for themselves and for their families, and now they're standing on food lines. Right? We've seen the long lines of people in the cars, and it's not just out there; it's here. Right? People are struggling. So all these charitable organizations all over the country, all over the world, for that matter, have been stretched to their limits. Catholic Charities being one of them. They're providing food. They're providing counseling. Think about the suicide level, the suicide rate that's gone up because of the stress and the tension of people being isolated and just having difficulties, not being able to know where their next meal or job's going to come from. People who need to see counselors. All that is provided by Catholic Charities. Now, how are they funded? They're funded by donations, and they're funded by the bishop's appeal. And so almost $500,000 last year was given to Catholic Charities because of the bishop's appeal. Also, Christian formation, that's the big one. Almost $600,000 from the bishop's appeal went to Christian formation. That is so important for keeping the faith alive here in East Tennessee in a time when our faith is sorely being tested. We need to be able to continue that Christian formation that we want our children to have, that we want our nieces and nephews, our grandchildren to have, and also ourselves, right? If you're gonna spread the news and spread the good word of the gospel, you have to understand it. So who's going to do that? We're going to do that because we're going to help keep people educated through Christian formation. Then also, clergy and seminary formation. I don't know about you, but I don't want stupid priests and deacons, right? I want them to know what the teachings of the church are so that they can raise you and your children and your grandchildren in the faith, to give them the education that they need to be good Catholics, to be good Christians. Also, for college and high school formation. These are the kids that are going to be taking care of us when we're old, right? I want them to not think about pulling the plug the first time I give them any guff. Wait a minute, I don't have any kids. Well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about, right? And then also, campus ministry, the same thing. Justice and peace. How important is that at this time right now to make sure that the moral and ethical teachings of the church are being explained and taught? And then finally, one that's most important. So many people who are sick, who don't have access to a doctor, to a nurse, to medical care. The St. Mary's Mobile Medical Clinic takes that to people into impoverished parts of the diocese. So without all these great gifts that are given by they're taken care of and funded by the bishop's appeal, people will lose out. So who's going to benefit? They're going to benefit. And who else is going to benefit? We're going to benefit because we are doing what Christ called us to do. We are going forth. We are spreading the message. We are bringing the word of God to those who need, and we're being charitable. We are treating each person like Christ. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. So who's going to help out do that? We're going to help out do that.